Alabama death row inmate Kenneth Smith has become the first American, in fact, the first person in the world to be executed using nitrogen gas.
The state has called it the most painless and humane method of execution known to man.
But a witness described it as horrific and the worst thing he'd ever seen.
Former advisor to Clinton and Bush administrations, Steve Gill, joins us now. Hello there, Steve. I must say we're all in a bit of shock about it here in the UK, having found out that it's happened overnight and that it was done in this way. What's your reaction?
You know, there were about 200 people executed across the states last year, most by lethal injection. And the irony about this particular one is that they tried to execute this particular guy. And again, we're looking 30 years after he murdered an innocent pastor's wife. He and another man were paid $1,000 each to kill her. They beat her and stabbed her over 8 or 9 times. And 30 years later, he's just now reaching justice. His co-partner was executed in 2010 by lethal injection. Now, Mr. Smith, they had tried to administer a lethal injection about 2 years ago and ended up jabbing him with the needle 3 or 4 times. At one point, asked him if he would clench his fist so that they could put the IV into his arm, and he refused, probably forcefully. So that did not work, and they've come back now and tried this, put the gas mask over his face, put this new nitrogen oxide into his lungs, and he passed away. The whole process was about 20 minutes.
Why is this proving to be so controversial with people when, frankly, as I keep saying here in the studio, people don't seem to bat an eyelid about the electric chair in America, and that is far from humane, actually, isn't it? I mean, that's quite a horrific process.
Well, and this one is supposed to be cleaner and easier than lethal injection and the other forms. Most of the people who are objecting, who are calling it the most horrific thing they've ever seen, are people who oppose any form of execution, whether they're using the needle that essentially puts you to sleep and then you never wake up, or whether they use this gas that's supposed to put you unconscious in less than a minute or two. Most of the opposition is people who would oppose any form of execution, and that's why they've come to this one. They oppose the lethal injection form. They've opposed the electric chair. There are some states that are considering bringing back the firing squad, figuring that comes quicker. I don't think that's the right choice.
I mean, and everybody is wondering, why don't prisons, if they're going to carry out an execution, use the same sort of method used by doctors when they do legally assisted suicides, for instance, in Switzerland and elsewhere? I mean, surely it can be done with more dignity.
I would think so. And again, the opposition to any form is part of what's triggering this. There's a limit on the types of drugs that can and have been used, because there are some that argue that even if they go quietly and pass to sleep and then pass away, that we can't judge the pain they might be experiencing when they're unconscious. But I'm with you, Ann. We have all probably had pets that we've experienced having to put down, and there's nothing that seems painful in that process. I'm not sure why we can't find a peaceful and loving process to carry out these executions the way we do with our pets.
Is there an element of revenge in this? I mean, maybe we don't care, or we want such an offender to suffer.
I think they do suffer in anticipation. This particular Mr. Smith apparently yesterday was not hungry, didn't have an appetite, was refusing food. Finally, he ate his last meal, which was a steak covered in A1 sauce. But he was resisting all the way, which you would expect. And he was, as his own pastor was saying, was really having a tough time coming to the likely imminent end of his life. The son of the pastor's wife who passed, who was there to observe it, he wanted to see that it went through this time, said that there was no compassion for her when they beat her to death and stabbed her to death. And I don't think there's a revenge element, but I think as they anticipate the end of their life, perhaps they do come to some, kind of moral clarity.
Okay. Steve, thanks very much indeed.